Hello, and welcome to another special episode, everybody. Today, once again, we are joined by the great, the gracious, and the very offer, Farvifian Guard. How's it going, Farv?
I don't know about the gracious part, but I'll take the rest, I guess.
Aren't you gracious to be here with a smaller channel? Anyways,
Oh, jeez, don't make it like that.
thank you, my lord, for showing up and blessing my house with your non-stench.
Oh, God.
Today we're going to talk about a few things, Farv. You know probably
Yeah.
about as much as I do on what we're facing with a new edition of Heresy coming out. And I thought this would be a good time for us just to talk about what we've seen and how we feel and what's the general mood we have towards it. You know what I'm saying?
Shit.
Okay. Well, I was not going to put it in such a way, but thank you for your brisket interpretation. Um,
I don't have a great deal of patience and love for GW's bullshit recently,
you know what?
as, I've evidenced in the past.
I 100% agree. So, today we're going to be a lot more casual, guys. We're going to be a little rambly, and it might take a little longer. So, I apologize. I tend to try to keep it concise, but today we're just going to blab. As an addition to the game, if we move past all of the other complaints, in
Mm-hmm.
my personal opinion, I do not think Saturnine was the right move. I
Hmm.
do not believe that it offers um, something that is going to be additive to the game, that it offers something that represented a need or a desire from the community. And I also think that it's going to introduce a kind of status quo that is going to be kind of hard to deal with. You're Let's be perfectly honest in this regard, and I'll try to be succinct and then give you the floor. This is going to raise the bar because you're talking effectively of super heavy um, Terminators. Effectively, there is something in the older editions of 40K that
Yeah.
filled this same oh god niche, and they were Devastators.
Yep. I remember those.
What were they called exactly? I never remember them. They were the Space Marines in a giant power armor. Um, Centurions.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Those gigantic, ridiculous suit things that you're like, what in the hell am I looking at? And well, honestly, I think it enters into that effectively. You're getting these absolutely titanic sized units, and on top of it, you're you're introducing a concept that even though Terminators are, especially Tartaros and Cataphracti, will be the more reasonable choice in my opinion. I think what you're seeing is you're seeing a situation in which, well, frankly, it's going to make it harder to justify unless they go that extra mile and they really position them to be obscenely expensive for a smaller advantage. But I don't see them doing it because, hell, they even match these guys in coming in units of three and all. I think they're pretty close in size, the Centurions. But that's my opinion. What do you say, Fav?
I don't really have a divergent opinion per se. That's the issue.
I do have a pretty intense concern over this situation. Frankly, um, and I know there's going to be loads of people who are going to be like, you gigantic nerd, you're You're complaining about nothing, but I really feel that you're getting something that's kind of an old concept being fed to you in a different way, in a way.
Yeah.
And I don't know. They're either going to be irrelevant later on, and people will just be like, "Well, Terminators, duh," or they're going to be this just very strange, um, kind of situation that we're going to have to deal with. But regardless, to me, they're just Centurions. I'm sure other people have pointed out they're in units of 3. I think they might. I'm not sure if they're on the same base size, so I'm not going to say that. But you're really getting into some interesting areas when it comes to the designs and all of that. So I don't think they're good from a lore perspective to add. I don't think they're good for a game perspective to add, though I do understand some of the design conceits behind them. And I will say they're not terrible, but it should have been contained to special characters or praetors and things, like an upgrade for a praetor or centurion, or you know what I'm saying. That
I think
this should
so,
have
yeah.
been a thing that's like, hey, now you can have a leader of your army, and he's in this crazy armor, and that'll give you more of a chance against a praetor. Blah 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 blah. I think
Yeah, that
if
makes
it was
sense.
contained to just that, my misgivings would be a lot less, because the idea would be like, oh, well, you're giving people an option without having to have a praetor, because not everybody wants a named character on their table.
No.
All right, so I've complained about that enough. Let's talk
Ooh.
about. We're going to talk a little bit, I think, first at the fact that I think it's confirmed for anybody paying attention, and it wasn't really a mystery to begin with, that GW has firmly put Heresy on the kind of track that we see so often with, well, 40K, Age of Sigmar, the 3-year
Yeah.
edition cycle, as we've come to lovingly call it in Florida land. It's not Florida, but
If you're talking
you
about the
know,
kind of love you get in like Arkansas, maybe.
no, no, no. The kind of love that GW gives would be illegal in most states. Uh, it's time to go to prison. You can't force people to love you. Anyhow, I think could we even say it was really an argument that anyone really posed? Because I don't think really,
Not
but
okay, not a genuine argument. It might be an argument you get from the shill channels and the sponsored people, but I don't think it's a legitimate argument.
I don't even think, to be blunt and fair on that regard, though, um, even most of the uh, GW contract channels were even like making the argument, or even trying to be like, yeah, it's not a thing that they're gonna do. I
Really?
think it's, yeah, like, I haven't really seen much in the argument, but here's the thing: most of the arguments I saw talking about it was a genuine fear people had that Games Workshop would put Horus Heresy on that kind of schedule, and generally
Mm-hmm.
a negative reception in the fan base, going, hey, look, with the way this game works, with what you got to deal with, a 3-year cycle is absolutely ridiculous. It's not worth it to me. And I think, for against all of those fears and hopes that this would not be what they would do, well, it's kind of what we're faced
Looking
with.
right at.
Is and I'm sad about it, because there's a lot of people who've said, "Hey, look, I can't handle Games Workshop doing this. My schedule doesn't work.
Yeah.
What I make doesn't work with this.
Ugh.
Um, this is not going to be something that, if they do this, I won't be able to stay in the hobby." I've seen multiple people
Yeah.
tell me this and say this in various
Mm-hmm.
areas, and I was concerned and I was kind of hoping against it. I want, it'd be great for content to be able to just sit here and talk about new stuff, but at the same time,
Yeah.
you don't want to see people get edged out because honestly, if you're in the Horus Heresy, there's a big likelihood you're an old 40K fan and you were feeling edged out of that to begin with.
Yeah, you were already feeling kind of like a second class citizen.
You already feel like you're getting pushed out, and then you know, now you feel more of the pinch. And I mean, look, time is the most precious thing you have. So the fact is, I feel most people are gonna go, look, I already invest more time in this than I reasonably should, and now I'm investing more money in it. This just isn't going to work with
Mm-mm.
our schedule, and I can understand that, and I hate it because the amount of people I've talked to that feel like they're just on the cusp, they're just
Yep.
that inch away from being like at a point where they can't keep up with the hobby anymore. It's
Yep.
been really
It's
high.
it's been
Now,
increasing, you know.
now that might just be a small group of people I know
I
because
don't
we're
think
all old
so
men, but
because I don't think so because the increase in people I've seen talking about 3D printing or places to get alternative models for hobby, related projects has increased.
yeah, it's just one of those things, and I really am concerned about what that means for just the average person that's going, I don't have time for this. Um, that is one of my big concerns, but we've had that confirmed, and well, let's hit up another topic real quick. Talk about concerns about the rules or
Oh, please,
bloating
because
of the
that's
rules.
gonna be incredibly stupid.
All right, so we don't have a full gamut, but first off, I'm going to just say that someone was obviously looking at bolt action and feels a little threatened by it because they literally took elements from just bolt action like pins and all of that fun stuff. And they even have markers that are going to come in the box for representing that, which I don't
Jeez.
necessarily hate the idea. I am actually pro them adding this, especially since, in a realistic sense, Heresy is supposed to be more like a historical style game. So that's how I feel on that element. I don't think that's bad adding it. What I do have concern over though is the extra stats being added onto the stat cards.
Really?
Yeah,
What could you
really.
possibly take issue with for that?
Okay, well, first off, I've taught people how to play war games, RPGs, not how to blow themselves up in trucks. And I mean chemical safety, guys, before people get crazy. I was a safety instructor. But so I've dealt with a lot of things, and one of the hardest things to do is the more you add on to get people to grip the basics, the harder it is for them to grip the advanced. So
Fair.
effectively, the way I would put it is when people have a understanding of a simple and effective base, they are then armed with the capabilities to understand and deal with the more complex elements you might present to them, because there's
Okay.
less of them to have to understand on the floor, so there's not as much mental space being taken up by it as there is on the ceiling, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
I
So
think it does.
I on the surface, I am not against some of the additions, but the immediate thing, as soon as I saw that this is something they were talking about and what they were talking about, I went, some of this just sounds like bloat. for the sake of sounding more complex. Now,
You don't
what I
say.
mean by that is they added this line that they referred to as effectively like the mental stat line.
Oh
And
boy.
the question I kept having was, what does this add to the game that not just making a leadership role does? Now,
More shit they can copyright.
well, they already had the copyright because it's mostly Rogue Trader stuff that they took from.
Okay, more
But
stuff they can refresh a new copyright on, or
that's
take
also,
people to court over.
I hadn't considered that they might be having to refresh some of their rights, but
It's
it's
been a
been a way.
while since Rogue Trader.
Let's not talk about that. But on that font line, so they added, you know, willpower and cool and
Mm-hmm.
technical capability. I forget the individual term for that. So bad on that. Fact check me to oblivion, people. Um,
A
but the question I kept having was cool seems like a complete waste of a stat. That
little bit.
it from the from the surface, from me not having a book in front of me, I immediately said there's nothing that it sounds like it does that leadership doesn't already accomplish.
Basically.
Willpower, I'm a little bit more lax on because it could, in theory, be a good thing for psionics and for representing units and such that are more capable against psionics or weaker against psionics. And it gives them a little bit more design space to design psionics against. Um, but again, I gotta be won over on that one because again, it's a what does this do that leadership doesn't? You need to show me how you're going to do that. And honestly, on that front, it's the only one of the stats they added that I've really thought had potential.
Let's be
Um,
real. GW's always been real bad at showing their work, so to speak.
well, I also don't trust their design team. So, it's catch 22 is I'm sitting there going, I don't trust the design guys behind this. So
Nope.
I need more of it. So I'm not going to give them a pass on it. But here's the thing is again, I was just looking and I'm trying to think from an objective standpoint and going, what is this going to offer the game that adds to it, makes
EG,
it
you're being much
yeah.
kinder than I.
Well, I'm trying to think from a design standpoint because I'm trying to think of what is this going to be used for? How could it
Yeah.
be used? Is this something that needs to be added? And the question I kept having was there a person in the room that was just like me going, hey guys, that just seems useless. Why don't we just add a different save? Like here's an example of something that I would have suggested as a counter argument to get people to think about the addition of
Mm-hmm.
willpower. Could we not just add a psionic save? And then you have units that have better psionic saves and units that have
Mm-hmm.
worse psionic saves.
But
And you
that
can
would be,
represent that.
using psionics.
And well, because you have librarians and all that through the whole
Mm-hmm.
thing, and this is obviously what this is going to be dealing with. The same with cool. I'd be like, what is cool adding that leadership doesn't? It just seems like an addition of something that's taking up more additional floor space in the mind
Well, yes.
that adds nothing to.
I'm not
Uh,
convinced it's not deliberate.
well, I think the problem is that someone probably in a design said, it'd be really cool. Look at all these cool things they had in Rogue Trader, and they didn't once stop and go, hey, why didn't those carry over into 40K?
Because nothing ever does. At least nothing good. I
Well,
swear, 40K is where all of the assholes in Nottingham send all their worst ideas anymore.
Well, like it's a really simple thing. It's like I don't think people ask why something wasn't transferred over in a design space. Like there's a reason why we don't do certain things. And it's because someone
Yeah.
tried it, said, this stuff works, but that one don't. Get rid of it. And that's my problem. Is I'm very concerned. I forget what the other one was. The other edition they added it was for dealing with technological stuff. I don't remember.
Oh, jeez.
I think again that's like comms and communications and things like that.
Yeah.
And I thought that could be kind of cool, but it feels like an artificial way to make like a mechanicum feel different. And I don't know. That one is a really I struggle with that one even more. Like, cool is the one I have the most trouble, but the one dealing with technological stuff is probably the second most. But it could be used in a cool way in that it would incentivize you to take more technologically literate units. So I could kind of see that. Though I
Hmm.
go, well, you could just restrict the equipment list so that those units would become more appealing to people as opposed to adding a stat that a good chunk of your units are never going to really make use of. But again, we'll have to see. So I'm really got a lot of concerns when it comes to, well, the addition of stat lines to the stat line. Um, sure, some older players, it feels natural and fine, but I've taught newer people, and it takes a little bit of getting. Now, it's gotten a little bit better when you're talking about there's more people who understand what D&D is and what a stat line is,
Ugh.
but yeah,
Anything involved with D&D comes with its own set of curses.
well, I mean in that they understand the concept.
Yeah, I know.
There's more basic knowledge, I guess is a way to put it. But
Fair.
I'm concerned about how much is being added to the baseline of things for very little payout. But,
Agreed.
you know, grain of salt, grain of salt, grain of salt, that whole song and dance. Um, Beyond that, effectively, I have a lot of concerns over what we were shown, what we've seen, what we haven't seen. And I also have concerns over the fact that Games Workshop apparently knows what people want and are deliberately making sure to put it further back.
Oh yeah, they seem to actively want to just piss people off. I wish that was new, but it's not.
Well, I think it's because they know that they could make more. This is my here's GW's a scummy company,
Huh.
and this is an understandable thing from a business perspective, but it's still scummy. From a thing, I guarantee you, the marketing department said we'll make more money if we keep the breachers out of that main box because people have to buy them separately as opposed to getting them in these other manners. So that's the thing that bothered me when I saw that the um, the breachers were announced during that preview
Mm-hmm.
thing, and I went, "That is pure scumbaggery right there."
No
So
argument.
that really that tweaked me in a way that shouldn't. It was nice to see them finally being brought about. But at the same time, I'm like, they are deliberately holding it back, and I guarantee you they removed it out of that box because they wanted to make sure they could drain as much in the terms of sales
Yep.
because they were afraid they were going to lose money in terms of they're going to make profit either way, but they were
Yeah.
afraid they weren't going to make
But
as
they want
much.
maximum profit for minimum effort.
Yeah. So I feel my misgivings being what they are. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping to potentially get a hold of it and be able to tell people a
We'll
more
see if we can
engrossed.
actually get a hold of it before the scalpers eat all of them.
If they're eating them, I would understand a lot more and then feel really bad for them. I have to eat this to live. But I'd like to thank Farv for joining me. Hey, what are your guys' biggest fears? Or do you agree with us? Disagree with us? Let us know. And of course, check out Farv's channel. I'm gonna make sure to put his link in the subscription or description. Oh my lord.
In the subscription.
The migraine is killing me.
No kidding.
Again, English not first language. Language.
it's,
Um,
it's definitely a language for you.
oh yeah, I'm languishing right now. I'm languishing the longer I talk. Um, Regardless, we're gonna have his link in the description. Thanks for joining us. Let us know what you're afraid of, and of course, if you're really happy with the box, or if there's something that you think they would do better, and of course, if there's something you'd like to see us cover or see me talk about, or you want to tell us about how much you love juggling, awesome. Just let us know in the description and have a wonderful day. Bye
Later.
bye.